Special Forces had a long history in Southeast Asia. In July of 1959, 12 U.S. Special Forces teams from the 77th Special Group were sent to Laos to clandestinely organize and train the Laotian Army. The Green Berets arrived in the country wearing civilian clothes with fake identification and were paid out of civilian funds from CIA bank accounts. In addition to training, these teams also had to find a way to cut the Ho Chi Minh Trail that ran through Laos into South Vietnam. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was not a single route south, but a spiderweb of trails and footpaths that communist forces used to supply cadres throughout Southeast Asia. By 1961, the political situation in Laos had reached a boiling point. Fighting between communist insurgents, competing warlords and ethnic struggles, with their roots going back generations, coups and counter-coups were beginning to unhinge American foreign policy in Southeast Asia. According to the domino theory, President Kennedy had to do something about Laos. Early in 1961, U.S. Special Forces were officially admitted into Laos. They could wear their uniforms and were designated by U.S. Military Assistance Advisory Group Laos, or MAG Laos, as White Star mobile training teams.
Special Forces were sent to Laos as part of an operation called White Star. And I think that that's probably where they got the early lessons learned, if you will, for what would become their role in Vietnam. The first groups that went in were under civilian cover, and they were just supposed to look around and see what they found. They found the obvious, which was that the communists were all over the country, that there was going to be a real problem, and the Special Forces then went in as part of Kennedy administration's military commitment to Laos. There's still a limited amount of Special Forces that went in as trainers, and the sort of things that became the rule in Vietnam.
These new teams were the spearhead of the thousands of troops to be sucked into Vietnam. The mission of these White Star teams was to instruct Laotian troops in counterinsurgent tactics. But not all activity was limited to the classroom. Some of the teams provided in-the-field assistance in the form of communication services, gathering of intelligence, and creating strike forces among the minority hill people of Laos. It was with this last mission that the White Star teams made their lasting contribution. In late 1961, the Pathet Lao controlled the strategic Balovan Plateau in southern Laos. Ka Hill people mostly inhabited this area in the Laotian Panhandle region. The Ho Chi Minh Trail ran between the plateau and the Vietnamese border. The mission of the Green Beret was to organize, arm, and train the Ka tribesmen into guerrilla bands that could drive the Pathet Lao off the plateau and cut the trail. The Special Forces advisors often found themselves in the middle of some of the most desperate fighting in all of the war. These desperate fights were the first trial by fire of the young Berets. They also etched the first names into the black granite wall that would become the stark symbol of America's sacrifice in Southeast Asia.
Dear Mick, only 2.5 more months to go. From all that's happening in little Laos, it seems that I will keep quite busy. It looks like I will have 6 new ribbons on my uniform when I come home. All of that's classified, but if all of the paperwork gets completed, I will receive a little recognition for a generally thankless job. They want me to extend my tour, but baby, I have to get out of this place. Don't worry, old Joseph will be home to his wife and daughter as planned, even if I have to swim the Pacific. Your own, Joe.
Captain Joseph Kerr Bush, Jr., military advisor to Laotian forces, was killed 5 days later during an NVA commando attack. He was 25 years old. The Special Forces advisors did save the villages from a communist takeover, but failed through no fault of their own to sever the communist supply trails. The attacks on the trail itself were never accomplished.
Again, there were 2 wars going on, the center of gravity for the main force war is the base areas. And in any war situation, you have to go for the center of gravity. We didn't do it. Center of gravity for the insurgency is the infrastructure. We waited too long to go after it. If we'd done those two things early on, it would have been a much different war than it turned out to be.
By 1962, the U.S. reached an agreement with the Communists to stabilize the situation in Laos. This agreement ended any hope of cutting the Ho Chi Minh Trail and gave free access to supplies to Communist forces in the South for the next decade. Supplies that would be used to end the lives of over 55,000 young Americans.